Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dante Fortson. I know you guys have been waiting for this one. Go ahead and hit the one in the chat if you can hear me, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I hope you guys enjoyed last night's panel, the Council of New Jerusalem. So today we're going to have a chance to talk to Brother Ron Shields after this. I don't want to give away too much. We'll talk to Brother Divine Prospect after this. So make sure you tune back in tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Once again, I'm going to be talking to Brother Divine Shields. He is part of the Council of New Jerusalem. And last night was our first just kind of panel, just sitting around talking. We're going to be doing that every week for those that missed it. If you have not signed up on HebrewSphere.com, please do so. The app will be coming soon. Make sure you get those ones up in the chat if you can hear me. I'm still waiting to see those ones before I start getting into the show. Let me see here. I'm checking my chat in the on my phone. I can actually see you guys post faster if I'm on my phone. All right, I see the ones coming up in the chat now. So I'm guessing you guys are a little bit delayed behind me, a little bit more than usual. So, all right, I'm gonna keep these on my phone. All right. So today's guest. One more thing. Make sure you like this. Hit the thumbs up button, please, and make sure you share this. The more people you share this with, the more eyes we get on this. You guys already know this. Share this on your Facebook page, not after it's done. We'll share it after it's done, but share it while we're going so we can get as many eyes on it. I mean, it's like having our own TV channel. If you guys share it to as many people as you can. If you want to support, go to patreon.com/Dante Fortson. The PayPal link is on HebrewSphere.com. And of course, Cash App. You can do so with hashtag BHITB and in the super chat as well. All right, so today's guest doesn't need much of an introduction. You guys have probably seen his videos all over YouTube. You guys have requested him for weeks. So today I'm going to bring the brother on without further ado. Brother TCA, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. And for those that don't know, TCA stands for Thoughts, Camera, Action. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm all right, not too bad, not too bad.
All right, so for those that don't know anything about you, let's just start from the beginning. Where did you grow up and what was your religious upbringing?
I'm not going to lie, yeah, for some reason, being on the other side of the fence is kind of nerve-wracking, I'm used to being in, like, doing a Dante, you get me? So on this side, it's like a bit nerve-wracking, but grew up in England. Where did the churchy, where did the religion element start from? Where did the religion element start from? Well, my parents weren't religious, or they weren't into the Bible or the book, should I say. They weren't really on that. So how it came to me was my grandma. She kind of grabbed me by the collar and said, "Boy, you need to go to church." So that's how it kind of came to be. My grandma introduced me to Christianity to the best of her ability from infancy, but that wasn't really me going out of my way to say, "Hey, let's do this Bible thing and this religion thing," and so on and so forth. So I guess my grandma was the real introduction to any exposure to the book, but parentally, I'd never really had that exposure in the house. So that's where we kind of got introduced. And then I'll probably say my dad, when he was probably 30, he had an encounter. He came to Jesus per se, and then he started to take me to church intermittently during that time because he separated from my mom. So he used to take me to church with him infrequently, periodically when I was at his house. So that was my secondary introduction to the book and so on and so forth. And growing up in a divided house, I would go to church with my dad, say on a weekend, Sunday church, people falling on the floor, rolling over like on fire and stuff. And then I'd go to my mum's and I try to replicate what I saw being taught, like the good teachings that were being taught in the house. And it always used to bring some sort of division and politics and animosity and so on and so forth. You get me? And then,
Yeah.
fast forwarding again, cutting a long story short, I said, I'm one of those guys. Yeah, I weren't really on. I didn't just. Wow, let me just do this little episode quickly. So, my personal experience of coming or doing my due diligence and just seeking. It wasn't by parental obligation or grandma consent. It was more of just some weird events that took place leading up to it. So I was always, like I said, always in and around churchianity, from my dad through osmosis, my grandma through osmosis. But when I took the bull by the horns, for want of a better word, was following a series of events. Yeah, and my testimony on the channel kind of touches on what was going on. You know, this one brother was killing dogs, and I was in the music industry, and certain things were going on which are not palatable, and certain just weird things were going on. One thing led to another. I started searching for myself, and it's just been a roller coaster experience ever since. So I never really came into it initially because of anything to do with melatonin or melanin or this, that, the other. When I was in churchianity, I was just there. When I was, you know, seeking and searching, I was there like, yeah, man, Seja Borgia, we love you. You get me? And then, like I said, man, it's been a roller coaster of learning, relearning, unlearning, and then relearning again. You get me? So I'll leave it there.
All right. Now you mentioned growing up and your mom taking you to church and your dad taking you to church. Were they part of any specific denominations? Were they non-denominational? Or did they have conflicting beliefs, or did they share a belief?
My mom is not religious. That's the thing. Like, my mom isn't. So when them two split and went asunder, yeah, it was my pops that was taking me to church, and the church that he took me to answer the question was a more like a Pentecostal vibes, you know. So like, you know, people are emceeing and you know, there's a lot of charisma. There's a lot of Kundalini vibes, but at the time I just thought that was normal. But in my inner heart, or whatever you want to call it or contextualize it, I always thought there was kind of something a little bit off. You get me? Because even when I was doing my little reading in my infancy, I'm seeing how the disciples are helping people off the floor. They're picking people up. They're saying, go and walk. You get me? They're giving speech to the inaudible. But then when I went to these places, I'm seeing people can't even speak. Like, people are like having speech impediments and saying it's wisdom. People are being thrown on the floor and saying it's deliverance. People are doing everything contrary to the book. But yet, that's what I'm seeing when I attend. So even though I was there in the theatrics of it, I always questioned it, thinking, this don't really fit. So to answer the question, it was more like a Pentecostal church. My nan, when I was younger, she took me to more of a Methodist church. So I had those two exposures in the beginning.
Okay. Now that's interesting. So you grew up in a church environment, which is what we're finding from most of the Israelites, and you start down this path of truth. What starts you down this path of truth? And is there any piece of evidence that stands out that made you just one day say, all right, this is it. This is who we are?
Well, I was homeless for like 2 years. I was homeless for like 2 years. And that was kind of like the Moses wilderness experience for me, being homeless for 2 years and just being in it was kind of a blessing in disguise, because I was separated from people and had that Midian experience where, you know, Moses with the sheep, and he's relearning the education in Egypt, and he's got time to just reassess, reevaluate. And that was kind of the first stepping stone to start asking the three essential questions: are, what am I doing here? Why am I here? And where am I going after here? You get me? And then those three questions, and just soul searching and not being able to rely on people was the thing that, you know, just relying on the Most High. And that was the kickstart, the catalyst to the exploration. And like I said, from there, it's been like a roller coaster journey. So when I was in the YMCA, I I was kind of like a divided house because I knew the church wasn't collaborative of the book, but it's the only place that was showcasing the book. And then my cousins, who happened to be a part of GOCC, the twins from Birmingham, they came and saw me when I was in the YMCA, and they kind of introduced me peripherally to the idea that Yeshua was a Negro and Babylon to Timbuktu and so on and so forth. But at that point, I was open, but I was still very much religious. So I couldn't really, I was kind of like, I was kind of like on the fence, you get me? And the seed was planted, but needed to germinate and grow. And I think some of the times, what happens in our particular awakening, people realize certain things and the seed shoots up, but there's no depth. So I was kicking and wrestling with this kind of concept for probably say 5 years. And then I joined the Adventist church, and it had so much teachings that were in synergy with the book. And a lot of the Negroes in my community were gravitating towards Adventism. You know, like the man who used to do Bible studies with me as a Jamaican background, coming from a Rasta background too, and he joined Adventism. And I went into there and was just learning precepts, was learning how to study the book, the methodology, line upon line, precept upon precept. And there was many good things, like foundationally. And then I started to see the cracks. But I'll probably get onto that when you ask another question. But like I said, man, it's been a roller coaster of discovery, rediscovery, learning, unlearning, and relearning. And like I say, man, I was on this thing when I thought Jesus was a Caucasian brother, you know, with long hair, very feminine appearance, and, you know, picking lilies in the field.
All right, so you did believe in Christ before you start on this journey, because one of the narratives they try to push is that we only believe in him because of race. So you, like many others, were believing in him before you got on this journey, correct?
Without a shadow.
All right, yeah. Perfect. All right, so now you mentioned Adventists. Now it's interesting because some of the developments that some of us have been following with the UA and Nefertiti and her belief in the Adventists. You were Adventist. What is it? What was the thing that you saw when you said you started to see the cracks? What was the thing that you saw, and what was it that finally brought you out of that? And did you immediately come into the truth, or were there steps in between Adventist and where you are now?
So when I said I was an Adventist, you know, I need to clarify, I was a die-hard Adventist. Yeah, not the nominal, because there's a lot of people who say that Adventists got to keep the Sabbath, and they're coming to the thing because of the Sabbath and because of the health message of abstaining from unclean food and having a more plant-based diet. So they're coming through two mediums and vehicles, through the Sabbath or through the health message that that's promoted. Yeah. But when I'm saying I'm a diehard Adventist, I mean, I was like, if anyone was to blast Ellen White, I would defend the whole. I was like the sentinel. I was with I was like Paul before Damascus in Adventism, in terms of just defending the thing. You get me? Like even though I was that guy, so I'm trying to paint the picture of, I wasn't just like, yeah, you know, just there. I was there like full force, and the entourage that I was with, we were all just full force from the get-go, came into Adventism and was like, oh yeah, this is amazing. And we had I've got, even to this day, yeah, because there's a thing like, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like, I'm for truth, no matter who says it, and I'm for justice, no matter who it's for or against. So even the books that I had, like all of her books, still got them today. I don't really reference them anymore because I don't really need to like that. But going back, that's what I was on. The whole structure of the church was me. You get me? So the cracks came, and they came. And I don't even know where to start with the cracks. Where should I start with the cracks, books?
Well, wherever you want to, whatever the first thing was you saw, what was the first thing you noticed, or the major thing?
Yo, just to clarify, when I said boobs, I weren't saying that to Dante, you know, I was saying that to the wife because she's in the room, you get me?
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to be any dead silence.
Yeah. You know, as well, I said to Dante before the interview, I said, yo, Dante, I don't want to do the interview, Yeah, and not see ya, you get me? Because it just feels weird. You get me? Like, it feels like, you know, them Vlad interviews where he just fires questions at people and you never get to see him. And I was like, yo, I don't want Dante to be Vlading me, you know. I don't want to be no Vlad guy. But boom, back to the thing. So, okay, the cracks. There's loads of cracks, but they are very preemptive and proactive in repairing the cracks. So when you see the crack, they've got a counter narrative for the crack. But then, so let me give a few examples of the cracks. The cracks. So Christmas then. We know Christmas is pagan. It's paganized. It's not of the Most High. I'm not going to go into that and do a synopsis, but we know, most of us know, it's not of the Most High. So then in Adventism, the prophet, she says, kind of gives it a bly, euphemism, minimizes it, and kind of says, it's not about putting gifts. All right, so the way they wiggle around this is when you put the presents under the tree, that's a form of worship and reverence in the tree because you're putting it under the tree. So how we're going to get around this synopsis or this predicament is we're going to put the gifts onto the tree. Therefore, we're not we're not following the same tradition because we're not going under, we're going over. I was like, okay. Then when I started just to understand the symbology behind the tree, you know, the tree represents that which was in Eden. And then you got the angel on the top with a star and an angel are synonymous in the Bible. And then you got the tinsel, which represents the snake. And then you got the decorations, the balls that represent the fruit in typology. And it's got so much occult just in the tree alone. And then the customs of Saturnalian, you just know it's not of the Most High. So they would have their counter narrative for it, you know. It's a day that we can utilize to witness to others. It's a day that we can use. We shouldn't ignore it. What would Jesus do? And I'm like, I don't know. So that was one, but that was a very minor one, but it was still one. Then the next one was probably the prophet, not knowing that the Hebrews were Negro. I mean, if you're a prophet, stands to reason you should know who the Most High's people are. But there's no references, there's similarities and parallels, but there was no, yeah, these Negroes who were exploiting on a day-to-day, they're the Most High's people. In fact, in her writing, she cross-references the Negro struggle to that of the Israelites in Egypt. So she makes a cross-reference, but she never directly says, yeah, man, on a lot of the people of the book. So it's very disingenuous, you know? So that was that. Then the next kind of, all right, so there was a Christmas thing. All right, let me build up to the nail in the coffin. So she didn't know that. There was one more thing that I was going to say, but it's gone out of my head. Hopefully it comes back. Okay, so the prophet, the so-called prophetess also went on to say that when we go to heaven, everyone will be white as Jesus. Yeah. She said, everyone's going to be white as Jesus. Now, I sent that to my Negro brethren who was in the church. Like I said, we were the diehard. We weren't this nominal Adventists. We were just on steroids in Adventism. So I sent it to my brother and I said, yo, I've just came across this source. No, I've came across this reference, but I'm not able to source it. And then my brethren said to me verbatim, bro, if she says that, I'm leaving the church. I said, yeah. He said, yeah. And I like a challenge in it. So I said, all right then. And I was looking for this source. It was kind of hard to find. And I eventually found it. And I sent it to this Negro. My good brethren at the time, he don't really chat to me no more because I don't really deal with the whole church politic. I sent it to him with the source, with the reference. And he was just like, tail between the legs and did a U-turn on what he just said. He wasn't ready to hear it, even though I sourced it and found it. You get me? So then that was interesting because that individual is the actual person who but gave me the push to make Fortson reaction. You get me? He's the guy who kind of gave me the push. He said, you should do this and do this and this. You get me? So he was kind of the guy who pushed it, him and another individual. The other individual has left Adventism, but this guy is still diehard waving the flag. Then the next thing. most of the juggernauts, the sentinels, the bastions, the oracles of truth in Adventism just so happen to be, I don't want to get you censored. They just so happen to be, I don't want to get you censored. And they run,
go ahead,
and they just happen to be the Jewish people then. Yeah. From the historians to the teachers. So let me say some names. So your evangelicals, Doug Batchelor, Jewish. Stephen Bohr, undercover, Jewish. Goldstein, the historian, Jewish. The guy who writes the Sabbath school lessons that go global, because what they do, which is good, is they have all things are done decently and in order. So every Sabbath, no matter if you're in Ghana, Botswana, China, Europe, wherever you are, you're basically doing the same Sabbath study. And the people that publish or you know, put the resources together, they're Jewish. So it's a very well structured, engineered body. And it was only in this particular building that they introduced me to the Prussians and the education of the Prussian people. And yeah, man, there's loads of cracks, man. But then when you start seeing the cracks and that, and then sharing the cracks you see, you realize you become an anathema, you become an outsider, you become Beelzebub, you become distrusted. And that's kind of what I faced when I started to wake up to the deceptions in Adventism.
All right, so I do want to kind of deviate just a little bit while we're near this subject. You guys see the news here, and we get a lot of censored news when it comes to what's going on overseas. Are you guys experiencing the same kind of hatred towards the Israelites as we have received here from many people who call themselves Christian, or is it just cool to be Israelite and, you know, you guys all get along out that way?
Honestly, I'm not too sure on that one. We don't in England is very, I know people don't probably are not privy to what it's really like in England. Well, England's very diverse. So I mean very, very extremely diverse, especially London and places like that. It's very, very, very diverse. So we don't really see as such, I would say. No, would be the honest answer. But the thing is, certain news stories that are covered in the USA, when we try to look on them, they are filtered. So I would say certain things are filtered. They'll say, oh, this doesn't cover the EU region. This doesn't cover the EU region. And just to backpedal slightly, the reason I had to just excavate that little bit of history is because many of the brews are in Adventism, like many. That's why I just wanted to touch on that. But to skip over that, to answer the question again, no, would be probably the answer.
Okay. And I didn't think you guys probably experienced it like we do here. It's crazy here. Now Monty Life mentioned please get a page on Dante's Hebrew Sphere platform before the minions cut off your voice. Yeah, we definitely will talk about that after if you want to set up a page on Hebrew Sphere, and that way they can, you know, get in touch with you. But yeah, let's continue on down this road. Now, when you first got started, did you intend to go like into a YouTube ministry? Was that your intent, or did you just want to share what you find, or did it, you know, was it a hobby that turned into something more serious? How did that happen?
That's what I'm saying, man. It all goes back to this little Adventism clique thing, this so-called, you know, church, you know. The guy that I mentioned earlier, if you go to my channel, one of the first ever videos was me and some brethren witnessing with Adventist books, going around places and trying to encourage and galvanize people into the church or into that particular ministry. See what I'm saying? And it's when I started to do the channel, I was still very much heavily Christianized, borderline Uncle Ruckus in my thoughts, you get me? And it was only being on the chat, like, no, to answer the question, it wasn't my intention to make a channel to even share anything like that. It was this individual saying, yo, why don't you do something and, you know, do something ministry wise. I weren't really on it. I was just an observer. I just watch other people and observe, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. But I weren't really like trying to put myself out there like that. So he kind of encouraged that. So the channel, it's like, because I had the channel, people would then fire questions at me, and then that would then make me want to study something out further, or someone might throw something. So as I'm sharing with people, you know, the Bible says, Proverbs 27:17, iron sharpens iron, so man sharpens the countenance of his friend. So I'm doing my, I'm like sharing, and then people are sharing with me, and then through that interaction, that global interaction of like-minded people, it's making me then study further, and then through studying further and looking into things more, that's kind of how it kind of was just organic. It wasn't really like something like, oh, I'm gonna plan and make a channel and do all of this stuff. It was just organic. It was just inspired by the Most High, organically, no GMO, no fertilizer. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And now you have a lot of great content. So this question might be a little difficult. It might not. What's your favorite piece of content that you've done, and why is that particular piece your favorite?
Particular piece. My particular piece probably hasn't even premiered yet, you know. But in terms of what's premiered, I'd have to say, all glory to the Most High would have to be probably. It's all it is. I kind of, where I am, I'm kind of selfish in terms of I'm just more laboring primarily for my people, yeah, and then secondarily for everybody else, because our people have been mentally just bamboozled. So that's what I mean by saying selfish in that respect. So the video that I probably would say is one of my favorites would be the Sambo video, and probably the Boule, and also, so I'm giving you probably three: Sambo, Boule, and the Sons of Noah. The Sons of Noah. Just because the impact that had on Larry Johnson, the impact that it's had on many people, the Sons of Noah, just to understand, because we've been so long we've been thrown into a black box, where our identity's just been lost in blackness, that when people understood nationally who people were or are and why it hasn't been elucidated clear for everybody to understand, this is, you know, that was probably a good one. So anything that kind of has had a profound effect on our people, even if it's agitated them to make them feel uncomfortable, I like to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. So the Sambo video was a video just to make people feel uncomfortable about their current mind state, because many of us were so indoctrinated and were so institutionalized mentally that we don't even think that we have these self-hating traditions. You get me? So that's probably, out of those three, it's probably, you know, the ones that I think were good.
All right. I'm glad you said that, because now it's going to bring me to two more questions. First question, just real quick, you don't have to get a whole historical rundown. For those that don't know anything about the Boule, can you quickly tell them what the Boule is?
Okay, making it short and sweet. Boule, wow, I don't know what it is with America, but you guys are just obsessed. Not you guys probably listening, even though there's probably some agents and some people like that. But you guys are obsessed with like these fraternities and sororities, and you know, I don't know what the fascination is, but the Boule is people that subscribe to these sororities, fraternities, and see themselves as, to pardon the word, uppity. So you're part of all these hidden esoterical communities, and the Boule is a Grecian fraternity, and it's other fraternities too. But the thing I don't understand, I can understand a Hebrew, yeah, who gravitates towards Pan-Africanism. I can kind of see the connection. I can understand the affinity towards the continent, and I can understand the drive and the charisma to want to be a Pan-Africanist. I get that. But what I don't understand is the charisma and the momentum to want to be involved in the Grecian based fraternities and sororities, especially when you read the book of Maccabees and you see what our people went through as a result of the Grecians. Like, I've never really understood that connect.
I agree with you, and even though I'm an American, in the sense of I was born here, I agree. It never appealed to me personally, and I never got it. I just didn't want to associate with it. So I'm with you on that. It just doesn't make sense to me either. Now, the reason I said that is because a couple of people mentioned Boule in the chat, and the Boule comes up a lot. Now, let's get to your sons of Noah. When you were studying the sons of Noah, what color did you come across, or did you come across a color at all that describes Shem, Ham, and Japheth?
What was that? Sorry, what?
All right, if you came across any color at all, because I don't want to direct the question, if you came across any references to color concerning Noah's sons, what did your research reveal about the colors of Shem, Ham, and Japheth?
Oh, that Ham and Shem were peripherally, on the peripheral, kind of synonymous. So, for example, Paul got mistaken in the book of Acts for an Egyptian, which means that he could have blended with Mizmarim, which is the proper or correct name. Then you have Joseph and his experience in Egypt being able to blend. And there's also a saying that where's the best place for a tree to hide itself? The best place for a tree to hide itself is in the forest. So many of the Hebrews, when they were fleeing persecution, even Yahushua, he fled into Egypt and mingled, which then would imply that he must have looked like the people he was mingling with. But there's other references that are stronger than that. It's crystallized and it's perfect and it just fits. So just to answer the question, I guess that's it. But there's loads. But those kind of were the stepping stones to make me question. And that was the reason I made that video. Then I made a second part and a third part. And the third part was addressing the more controversial texts like Songs of Solomon, when he's referring to himself as white, and then he's referring to himself as ruddy. And what's going on there? Is there a discrepancy? What's going on? And when it says I'm black but lovely, or black but lovely, but the word black, the word but was it was added opportunistically, as an adversative. But when you check it out, it wasn't supposed to be in the original text. So it's supposed to just say I'm black, beautiful, but I added the but there, which some scholar was very opportunistic and just put it in there as adversity. But there's many places that we could go off and go on, and
And that's interesting. I don't think I've ever, outside of you, I don't think anybody has really broke down the but in that sentence before in Song of Solomon. Shout out to everybody in the super chat. Appreciate you, and everybody. Make sure you get your thumbs up and please share this. Now, you come out with all these videos. People love your videos. How do your friends and family react to the videos that are coming out?
You know what it is? Since being in I have to always go back to the roots and to get to the fruit. So since being in, actually just before, so when I was in the world, I would say my family was very supportive. Very, very well. I wouldn't say very supportive. It's kind of been a splintered family anyway, if that makes sense. But when I was in the world, there was a lot of support because it has a worldly appeal. Then when I went to Adventism, it brought a bridge between me and my dad because he was an elder in a Sunday church, and I was telling him about Sabbath, and he's like, we had a Jacob and Joseph complex. Like, who are you to tell me anything, Joseph? And it kind of brought a little bit of a rift, and it's never really healed from there. So, cutting a long story short, I'm not really, the family-wise don't really connect with me, but it's kind of freed me because now I don't have to sing to anybody's tune or scratch where I don't itch. You get me? But if I had too much, I guess, family ties or things of that nature, then I'd have to be probably more circumspect with the content. But because I don't have to sing to anybody's hymnal, I can just do what I need to do by Yah's grace. Friend-wise, when I was in Adventism and I was defending that to the T, there was loads of support in that. But when I stepped out of that, then it's like I just became enemy of the state. Some brethren stuck by, and no, most brethrens left, and a handful, literally a handful, stuck by. So because I don't really have that pressure to conform, to be, you know, polished and refined, I can just go all guns blazing. I don't really care if I upset people as long as the word gets preached, if that makes sense.
All right. Now you mentioned you had support while you were going hard for SDA. And one of the things we've seen, not specifically from SDA, but we've seen coming out of some of the Eurocentric based churches, even the black ones, is the pressure to ostracize somebody that steps away. Do you think that they were getting internal pressure to kind of ostracize and push you away because you stepped away? Or do you think that there's something spiritual going on there that people react like this because they feel you're stepping away from the truth of the gospel?
Yeah, I think it's not one dimensional. I think it's multifaceted. Like in terms of what you said, I agree. I think it's because people are uncomfortable with truth. You know, truth is not a nice thing. You know, Pontius Pilate said to Yahushua, "What is truth?" Like, truth is uncomfortable. You know, there's a film by Jim Carrey called, is it Liar Liar? Is it Liar Liar? Top of my head, I think.
I believe so.
And the brother couldn't tell a lie. He couldn't tell a lie for a day, and he upset so many people. He upset so many people. Like women are coming to him with a coat on or something, and he's like, "Yeah, your coat looks don't look that good," you know. People are coming up to him asking for his opinion. He's like, "Yeah, your work just doesn't look that great," you know. And that film, it's got so many little subliminal messages, but it's saying that most people, I mean, Yeshua, who was the epitome of truth, people turned on him. You get me? So if we're going to take it to a spiritual level, truth is offensive. I think even Raul says, "Am I your enemy because I tell you the truth?" So truth, not everybody thinks truth's a good concept, but in application, it doesn't really sit well. You get me? Especially if you live in a lie. And then the other element, I'd say definitely there's gatekeepers in the building, because most churches just take it away from Adventism, but churchianity as a framework, there's an allegiance to Israel. There's a undercurrent, undertone allegiance to Israel. Your tithes, a percentage goes to the pastor. Even if you look at a passive income, your tithes go to the pastors. The pastors are trained to sing a particular narrative onto the people, you know, TD Jakes, Benny Hinn, this, that, the other. So I think just to round up the question, make it short, yes, on both occasions, spiritually, there's people are unwilling to change because truth hurts. And yes, there's definitely gatekeepers and people in place to make sure the narrative stays the same. And anything outside that narrative is contentious, because let's be real, there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of perks and privileges involved of being the children of the covenant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. And I agree with you. I get it from that perspective. Now, here's what I don't get. Why do you think so many of our own people react the way they do when we try to share the truth with them? It seems that they go the hardest against us, and they defend those other people the most. Why do you think that is?
Say that one more time for me, bro.
Our people, when we are talking to our people and sharing the truth with our people, I've noticed that those that not that identify as Israelites, but those that identify as believers in Christ, but they're still our people. When we talk about this information, they seem to come at us the hardest and fiercest out of everybody, and they defend the other people over in the other land. Why do you think it is that they go so hard at us and aren't willing to just be receptive and investigate the information?
Okay. So you're talking about the other side of the coin. So you know what? I don't know, you know. It's probably different in America on this particular, I don't know. In my experience, more so the Gentiles have been kind of more receptive than the Brews. But I know there's a pressure makes a wise man mad, and there's so much things mentally that stop people. But if I was to answer it from what I've observed in America, I say it's because there's a lot of again, perks and privileges of keeping the narrative going. It doesn't matter what color Jesus is, but he's always white. I mean, we can make Spider-Man black, the Human Torch black, the Ghostbusters, we can make them black and female. But when it comes to Yahushua, it needs to be white. And if we do make him black, we're going to caricature him. We're going to make him satirical. You know, we're going to make a joke out of it. Like when they actually introduced the black Jesus, he was a drunkard. He was, you know, humanity. So it's like, you can be black Jesus, but you have to be a moron. You have to be an idiot in essence. We have to keep this narrative going because, like I said, man, it's a form of control and it's a form of supremacy. And if they describe him as he ought to be, they lose their perks and privilege, and that's something that they're unwilling to let go of. On this final point, because oftentimes this particular community who masquerade as Jews who are not Jews, they code switch, and sometimes they say they're white, and sometimes they say they're Jew. So both of these elements work kind of in unison to a degree, and that's why they kind of keep the deception going.
All right, now I'm gonna ask you a question I've never asked anybody before. Do you think it's a salvation issue if they are changing the ethnicity of Christ and then putting him on TV and in pictures? Does that, I guess, lean over into idol worship and I guess threaten salvation, or is it just all good that we do whatever we want with Christ?
I got one. Find this quote actually. It's a good quote that answers that question. Here it is.
All right, while he's looking for what he's looking for, you guys get those thumbs up. Thank you guys in the super chat as well. Make sure you share this video. This is a great build. I'm loving this. Let me read this comment from Lena G or Lean G. I hope I pronounced that right. TD Jakes knows we are Hebrews. He said out of his mouth, he is from the Igbo tribe. They're still paid to shut up about who we are. However, my pastor has always taught us we are Hebrews. TD Jakes has mentioned that we are, or that he is Igbo before, and now he seems to kind of hate Israelites for whatever reason.
You got to remember, you know, this whole framework has been going on for a long time. You know, I'm going to come back to that question, but on that same point, this framework has been going on for a long time. By framework, I mean brain purging. So what they used to do on the continent is they would brain purge candidates who showed affinity, or they'll just brain purge someone, like take someone, educate them in their theology, and send them back to Africa as a missionary or as a pastor, but the pastor was speaking their words. So he was just a blackface for white supremacy. These mediums of infiltration went on for a long time. Go on, bro.
I agree. And we see a lot of that now. That is a very good way to put it. Black faces for white supremacy. And I'm not gonna say that right now. I'll come back to that at a later date. I'm not gonna name no names. But yeah, we see a lot of that going on right now. Black faces for white supremacy.
There's ample case studies. I mean, I got the sources where they just say, you know what, we're gonna break. This is why when American pastors come to England, there's like a parade, there's a song and a dance. You know, an American like to get people excited in England. They'll say, "Oh, a pastor's coming from America." Now, this pastor that's coming from America, 9 times out of 10, is in bed with Zionism. He's been taught if he's not in bed with them, he's been taught by them peripherally, through the institution, through the academia, through the media, through whatever. And then he's going to be a voice person for them. You get me? Likewise, on the continent of Africa, they get excited when an American goes there. And then I've got the sources that go back to the plantation, back to slavery, where they would train. In fact, the most eloquent, the most well put together, the most polished, the most refined, he was headhunted, elevated, and then sent to Africa as a missionary, or you're sent to Europe as a missionary. So you're thinking, oh yeah, he looks like us, talks like us, walks like us, but he was talking for someone else. And then when you watch the video of Nate Turner was the same. He was on code. He'd been educated in churchianity, in Christianity. You know, he was the top one. And then he started to wake up. And then what was he met with? Resistance, even though he was quoting the scripture. And he was like, okay, You guys are just using the scripture, but you're not living the scripture. So this thing, and a good case study is Tolton. There's a guy called Tolton. You should look him up. All right, can't find this quote, but yeah, I guess every truth. All right, so when I first started here, I made a video on Jesus, and I says it doesn't matter what his ethnicity is, but every truth matters. All truth matters. let's use somebody else's strapline. All truth matters, and if you don't, many of our people have saved their souls, but they've lost their mind. Yeah, they've saved their souls salvifically, but they've lost their mind. And the Bible says, if you hate your brother or the Bible says, love the Most High with all your heart and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Our people, we love everybody else, but we hate ourselves, but we're saved. And I think that is a mental, cognitive dissonance that we need to ask the Most High to get away with. But we can only get away with that when we have truth, because the truth is the key that unlocks the padlock. So if all people say, oh, it's not salvational. If it's not salvational, then change it. Why are we peddling a lie?
Yeah, and I find it interesting that people want to focus on Christ, but they don't want to talk about which Christ is Christ. Because if they're out there preaching a different Christ, saying, "Hey, he's this white guy here," and we know he's not that white guy, that to me seems like it would be a different Christ, 100%. And it would be very important. Now, I do want to ask you a few questions that I ask everybody on here. And you did answer one of them earlier, that you did believe in Christ before you came to this truth. The second question is, do you hate white people or teach hatred for white people at all?
Oh man, you know what's mad about that question? I know you're asking it to provoke thought and so on and so forth, trying to rub the strap line. But yeah, man, the fact that truth, I think Stephen Darby said it the best, truth has become racist. And just by saying the truth, people think you're being racist, or you're anti a certain nation, or you're anti a certain people. To answer the question, no, not without a shadow of a doubt. I was saying earlier today that most Gentiles who wake up to the truth, Jeremy Yahoo says that there's going to be Gentiles who say we've inherited lies, our fathers taught us lies, everything's been a lie. Yeah, and they're gonna open up, and they're gonna want to know the truth. The biggest problem that we're facing with humanity is everyone's been lied to. You got people who've been taught that they're superior than everyone, and then you got people who've been taught they're inferior to everyone, and the whole world has been deceived. And when you start to tell the truth, then everybody thinks that you're hating. I think there's a quote by, I forgot his name now, George Orwell. It says, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. So sometimes, like I was saying earlier about Liar Liar, Jim Carrey, he was just telling the truth, but people thought he hated them. You get me? So now, man, no, we don't hate no one, but the truth does get mistaken for hate. And that's something that we need to understand and mature upon as well.
I agree with you. And I think the most frustrating part about it is that it's mostly the people that look like us that would rather they would push the false narrative that we hate people, we're racist, we're divisive, just simply for teaching the truth. So let's go to the third question.
One more thing.
Go ahead.
So you see these young camp brothers doing their thing, yeah? Let them do their thing. There's no issue, there's no drama. These young boys are on the road and they're saying things that I might not necessarily agree with, or saying in a way I might not have said it myself, but they're provoking thought, and people are, even probably certain channels have came to be because of just hearing something, not everything, but hearing something, or hearing everything, or whatever the case may be. But notice, they're only using words, and the words are making people so uncomfortable that they're saying, oh, it's hate. But they've never lynched anyone that I know of. They've never castrated anybody that I know of. They've never raped anybody that I know of. But most of our people are in Christianity, which has done these things. And when racist events happen, they turn the other face and say, we don't focus on a social gospel. So this is what I'm saying. Like when you're, I have to use this phraseology because the Bible says you'll be sold unto your enemies. Yeah. So when your enemies educate you, this is when you get this kind of backwards mentality, this Uncle Ruckus archetype, where people will rather protect, or the Stockholm syndrome kicks in. You get me? Because these young lads on the road, they're saying things, but they're not doing any physical harm like that. But then you've had a Christian entity say things and do things, and they're labeled as benevolent, you know. So it's just something to consider.
Yeah, I agree. We don't find anything. Who was it? James White said that the Israelites were worse than the KKK, and I'm like, come on now, the Black Church needs to call that out, because that's just crazy to me that you know, like you said, the brothers on the street yelling or saying things that they might not agree with, they equate that to raping and lynching and voter suppression and all the other stuff the KKK did, and I think that is absolutely insane. That those that accuse us of being racist don't even speak up against someone like James White, who would dare to compare us to those people. Now, the last question of the three: do you believe salvation is for everyone, or can only Israelites be saved?
I believe it's for everybody. I believe that there's going to be a hierarchy in the kingdom, the same way that there's a hierarchy on earth, and there's always hierarchy. But we kind of, because we've been taught this kind of demonic form of hierarchy that turns into tyranny and oppression, we think that that's going to be replicated like that. Yahushua says the greatest in the kingdom will be a servant. So when people say, "Yo, I'm going to be the great," I don't think people understand that the greatest is going to be a servant. Yeah, like, and we kind of have this worldly view of servitude. We think, "Oh, I don't want to be no one's servant. I don't want to do this." And this is why Yahushua had to say to the man, "Yo, I'm going to wash your feet. Let me wash your feet." And the man them were like, yeah, you ain't washing my feet. No, sir, that's beneath us. Yeah, I've got corns on my cobs and I've got some, 6 toes and I ain't flossed in a week. And he's like, nah, man, yo, I'm gonna wash your feet. Like, I'm showing you what the kingdom's like, but you're too busy obsessed with me knocking out these Edomite Romans. They're gonna get their time and they're gonna get knocked out because we know Daniel, the statue, the stone's going to smash the statue. The last kingdom that's reigning is a Eurocentric kingdom. That's going to come. But right now, you need to know what it's going to be like to live in the kingdom, because it's not going to be what you're seeing here currently, because it's at variance to the Most High. You see me?
Right. Now, moderators, feel free to block Kevin G if you want to. He's just being a distraction because he's not listening to anything that's actually being said. Which I'm glad that Kevin G came in here, because he's one of those guys that looks like us, and yet he attacks his own in order to defend those other people. And I want to get to hierarchy. Go ahead. Before we get to hierarchy, go ahead.
I want to say one thing. Yeah. Even when we look at things historically, when we look at the KKK, for example, or the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, and their origins in Scotland, and Nathaniel Bedforest, who was the originator of the KKK. These came from Scottish Presbyterian backgrounds, and they founded the KKK. Yeah. So the Christianity is entrenched in white supremacy narratives, undertones, undercurrents, theology, and then if you want to go a step further, I don't want to get man censored, but the Jewish community in the role of the Confederacy and how they were in bed with in fact, they were the higher echelon of the Confederacy, Judah P. Benjamin and all these kind of people. So if you want to call anybody, a BIE, black identity extremist, and give us all these names that we don't want. I mean, I don't subscribe to the label Black Hebrew Israelite. Why are you trying to blackwash everything? Black ball, black market, black man. You get me? I'm not into this whole negative semantic with putting black to things. You get me? So I just wanted to make that clear, that even these so-called terrorist movements that don't get labeled terrorists because they're Christian in origin, they're prime examples of terrorist organizations, but they don't get the press. But young Negroes who are sick with oppression, vexed, might not articulate it in the most polished and refined way, and they're crying aloud, which is biblical. They're now enemy of the state. And then in the book of Maccabees, it says that during the Grecian occupation, he said that one couldn't identify as a Hebrew and he couldn't keep the Sabbath. You couldn't say what you were, and you couldn't keep the Sabbath. Maccabees 6 verse 6 off the top of my head. You get me? So what I'm saying is we're seeing a repeat of history. And that's why knowing history helps you to be able to navigate the pitfalls and the propaganda that they use to say we're haters or we're doing hate, when it's something if we're doing hate, it's something we've learned from being under their stewardship.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that about putting black on it, because I find that they do that with us, but they don't do that with other cultures. They don't call them white Hebrew Israelites, but they'll call us black Hebrew Israelites. And then they'll tell us, like somebody just popped in the chat and said, skin color isn't getting us into heaven. If that's the case, stop painting Jesus white. Go find those people. If you know Jesus is not white, go to those Christian production companies and those painters and all that and tell them it's not about race. Stop making it about race because Jesus wasn't white. Go tell those people that. But they don't do that. They don't tell them that. They tell us that.
You know, the thing is, bro, we don't need to, you know, with me, I'm like, I have like I don't entertain pests, you know. So I'm like, I have my fly swatter and I just swat flies, you get me? I don't really entertain because Yahushua said, just say something, and if it's not reciprocated, or if people don't want to reason, because Paul was a reasoner, you know, he wasn't really just he wasn't no like dictator. He would reason. He'd always want to reason. But then it gets to a point where you just have to just say, you know what? I'm not giving you guys no energy. I'm not entertaining anything. I'm just wiping the dust off. I've seen, or I've came across, because I was looking at certain interviews and that, and there's one individual that people keep giving too much focus to. I'm like, why are people giving? I don't want to name drop. I don't want to give people attention either. I'm like, just leave the guy alone. I'm like, just leave the guy alone. Like, you get me? Like, he's obviously. I think what we do more harm than good. We don't need to. You know, this is what Charles Spurgeon said. He said, "The truth needs no defense. You just let it out of the cage." And he was talking about a lion, like how a lion, you don't need to defend a lion, just let it out the cage. And truth doesn't need defending, you know. You just lay out the cage, you just do your thing, ignore them. And there's a phrase, sorry to take over and hijack here. I'm just going to share this. No,
you're good, go ahead.
I'll just share this quick quote, man. Oh yeah, and I found the other quote now at the same time, crazy. Okay, so this is a quote by Arthur Sol Pan Hewer. I think he's an ish, but I'm for truth no matter who says it. I'm for justice no matter who's for or against. That quote by Uncle Malcolm X stops anyone from being a bigot, because you're just for truth, whether it comes from the mouth of an ass, which is unclean. You're just for truth no matter the persuasion. So he says all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's ridiculed. So that's probably the stage right now, collectively. First, it's ridiculed. Secondly, it's violently opposed. So those are those trolls with the exclamation marks and how dare you, how dare you. So that's the second. Third, it says it's accepted as being self-evident. So it goes through being ridiculed, opposed, and then being accepted as self-evident. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And then the last quote that I had, this is by a guy called Dr. Furren Williams. And he says, you can't separate Christ from his ethnicity, from his color, and say you're accepting Christ as your Lord and Savior. You either accept all of him or you don't accept him at all. And we don't have the luxury to say, I'm going to conform Christ into a color that's comfortable for me. Most people, most, not all people, but some Gentiles, when they get the revelation that Yeshua, we should change the question. Most Gentiles, when they get the revelation that Yeshua is Negro, they leave. You get me? We've been in church a long time with white Jesus, and we've been happy, you know, singing Kumbaya and, you know, white Jesus, we love you, we adore you, we appreciate you. But then when the flip side get the revelation, that's when they want to contest it because it doesn't fit right with them. It doesn't fit them. So because it doesn't fit them, then that's when they make it an issue, and then they throw the issue as if it's us. When we've all been in church with our tambourines to white Jesus, but now the revelation's coming out, and it's irrefutable that he's a Negro. Now it becomes a controversial issue. You get me?
Yeah. And what I find interesting here, and I'm glad you talked about it being violently opposed. And I've said this many times. When it gets to the violent opposition part, they're not gonna stop and ask people like Kevin G, hey, are you a Christian or Israelite? No, they're gonna say you look like one of those Israelites, and they're gonna arrest you first, ask questions later, beat you first, ask questions later, or shoot you first and ask questions later. This is how it's gonna go down. We know this is how it's gonna go down. I want to get back to something you said earlier, hierarchy in heaven. How did you come to the conclusion that there's going to be a hierarchy in heaven? Because they say we're all going to be kings and priests, and I don't understand how you be a king or a queen in heaven if you don't have anybody to be a king or queen over.
Well,
so how did you come to the conclusion about the hierarchy?
Well, I'll just use, without even touching on that, but paralleling that with what we already have. The scripture says, on earth as it is in heaven. And I think people overlook these simple things in the book, you know. There's always been a hierarchy. I mean, the sons of Levi, what was their job?
They were the priests.
Okay. But were all Levites, could all Levites be high priests?
Oh, no, sons of Aaron.
Okay. So even in the what's the word I'm after? Not theocracy? Yeah, theocracy, whatever. Of Yasharel, in its infancy, in its inauguration, there was levels. Even though you're a son of Levi, you couldn't go into the office if you wasn't a son of Aaron as a high priest. And also there was conditions to being a priest. You couldn't have a disability or so on and so forth. So the Most High doesn't really deal with equality. He's not a God that deals in equality. He's not I know it's gonna make people uncomfortable, but he doesn't really deal with equality. He deals with equity. The Bible always says, I'm an equity. Now, making that an illustration, if I'm giving my children food, yeah, my wife, she might have the same plate size proportion of me, or she might have a bit more. Rapid. But my children, if I give them the same percentage as me, then even though it's equality, like that's equality, we should all have an equal amount of food. But my children, there's a high percentage that they're going to waste it, or it's going to be a tug of war to get them to eat it. Yeah. So the world and Satan's system is all about equality. Oh, it's, equality. But the Most High deals with equity. Not everyone gets the same plate. That's why he says you'll be paid according to your wages. So I'm not sure how the Most High system's going to be, frameworked and set out intricately. But we just know there's going to be a hierarchy. Even when he says those who teach people not to keep the commandments are going to be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So we know there's a hierarchy. We know the Most High is a Most High of order. And one more point on that same point, on earth as it is in heaven, we know that in the angelic arena with the angelic host, there's a hierarchy. So you have hierarchy in the angelic host. Stands to reason that you're going to have hierarchy when it comes to mankind also.
I agree with you wholeheartedly there. We see hierarchy all over the place in the natural world and in, like you said, the angelic realm.
Oh, one more point.
Go ahead.
One more point. On that same topic, I just want to use one more illustration of nature. Yeah, the book says that the sun is the bigger. I'm just paraphrasing. Yeah, the sun, it says the moon is the lesser light. That's what it says. Now the moons could say, "Boy, I don't like the Most High now." Trying to say I'm lesser. You think the sun can't give off no light like the sun? I mean, you think the moon can't give off no light like the sun? But the Most High is saying, nah, man, you're lesser. So just in nature, there's hierarchy. In the angelic kingdom, there's hierarchy. In the nation of Yasharel, there was hierarchy. Judah, he was a king. So he was over the affairs of the state. Yeah, this is where church and state actually comes from, It comes from the nation of Yasharel, because the priest, they were over the affairs of the priesthood. So the things that pertain to the Most High. But Judah was over the affairs of the kingdom. See, he was over the affairs of the day-to-day running of a kingdom. Yeah, the laws and this, that, the other. So even in the fabric of Yasharel, yeah, in the testament of Levi, I believe it says that Levi, his office was more superior than Judah, because he was doing the work for the Most High, but Judah was doing the work for the kingdom. Yeah, so the Most High is a God of order, isn't it? And that's about it.
Very well put. Now we're coming on just over an hour now. Is there anything you want to say to everybody before we get out of here? And also, can you give your contact information so everybody can check out your channel and all your other work?
Anything to say? Oh, thanks for everybody for tuning in. Big up Dante Fortson for the invite. Prior to the invite, honestly, I never knew of Dante Fortson, so it's good to connect globally, and it's an amazing time to be alive. It's a crazy time, but an amazing time, and I think it's great that the Most High has put it on Dante Fortson to try to be the sinew to bring different people in and to stimulate a healthy conversation. And I just want to encourage Dante not to feed into the trolls and to take what Yahushua said when he said, you know what, don't give something that's holy to swine. Now, if you heard that in a sermon today, people would kick Yahushua out, you know, because imagine that, you know, Yahushua was like, yeah, don't cast your pearls to these like, but we've been kind of given a feminist, we've been given a feminine perception of what it means to be a man of the Most High. Yeah, we have this feminine, like we don't want to offend, we want to please everyone, win everyone. But the Most High said the Bazora will go out as a witness, and then the end will come. It just means everybody needs to have an opportunity to hear it, to make their own decision from there, and we just leave it. We don't try give anyone no. What I say to people all the time is, if you say something to a brother and he's just like going with it, 9 times out of 10, that person's just a people pleaser. Yeah, and we don't want any GMO seeds. We want seeds that take long to germinate and burst through the earth and then grow into strong plants or strong trees. We don't want these quick, because that's just a waste of time and a waste of energy. So, bro, keep doing what you're doing. Keep banging on the door. Keep disturbing people and comforting people. And, you know, yeah, man, I just want to encourage you to carry on doing what you're doing. And, you know, is what it is. I
appreciate that. Now, can you tell everybody how to get in touch with you and where they can find your information at?
Boy. Information, Instagram, Forts Camera Action, I believe that is. On Twitter, it's TCA_media, and the channel is Forts Camera Action. Yo, bro, quick question for you. Yeah, I'm switching you.
Okay.
What inspired you to put the fist as your emblem?
Mostly because it irritates a lot of white supremacists and certain people. Because at first I wasn't going to use it, and then I saw the more they got irritated, the more I wanted to just leave it there. So it kind of just became a thing, and I just left it there. Honestly, that's what happened. Thank you, Anthony Mendoza, in the super chat again.
Okay, mad.
But yeah, that's really the reason. But
you know the origin of that goes it goes back to communism. I know you already probably know.
Oh yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, it was the Ish people that kind of brought that out, you know, to go against communism, socialism, and to kind of do over the USSR. But that's another story for another day. Ain't gonna go down there. But yeah, man, I just wanted to know. Everyone does their thing.
Yeah, right. That's all good. I'm gonna talk to you after this because some people they want you on Hebrew Sphere. So I'll we'll talk for a second after this. So just hang on. Everybody else, hit those thumbs up. Make sure you share. This was a great build. So share with everybody you know, and jump on tonight, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, I believe. I'm going to be talking to Divine Prospect. So you know him as Ron Shields. We're just going to be talking. So make sure you guys come tonight. And with that said, till next time, I'm out.
Yes.